Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erika.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform. So the story that I have to share is not even, it's one of those ones that was like, maybe no one else who was there even noticed that something happened, but it was really profound for me. And like where you didn't realize that you knew something until you heard the words coming out of your own mouth. I don't know if you've ever had those moments.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was at this healing retreat and a thing that I had been working on, that's just this kind of long question is like, why is it so hard for me to believe that people love me? Why is it so hard for me to let that in? And I had the experience during this retreat of like people asking for me. Where's Becca? I want Becca here with me, or I need support for something. And what I really want Becca to be here. And then we were at the end of the retreat doing this kind of closing circle thing where people could share some of what they took away and, you know, do some integration of the experience that happened. And I remember this was the like knowing it was true as I heard the words coming out of my mouth that I said something along the lines of, I think that it's hard for me to really let that sink in, that these people could love me so much, because if that's true, then I have to deal with this question of, but why don't I feel that from my family? And so if I keep the friend people at bay, then maybe I can sit in this place of confusion and like not knowing. But if I really let in that actually I am quite a lovable person, then I have to deal with the really difficult questions of like, but why couldn't my parents love me? Why don't I not feel accepted in my own family that I came from? And somehow for so many years, it felt easier or safer to not wrestle with any of those questions and to just keep me in this place of like, I'm always just sort of lonely. I know.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
What was that experience like as you heard your own voice?
I don't know. It was profound. And it's like, I knew that was true. I knew that was true, even though maybe I hadn't let myself be consciously aware of it before. But there was some grief that I needed to deal with from the family I was raised in. And I've been thinking in the time since then how I have really wonderful chosen family, you know, several different groups, y'all being one of them, right? Like these groups of chosen family, and how in some respects I keep those people like at arm's length. Or maybe almost like I think of them like they're just holding a place. Well, you guys are cool for now, but then once my biological family, you know, when my cousins start inviting me to things, then that's when, right? And so maybe I'm not really fully investing in or taking advantage or really letting myself enjoy the beautiful friendships that I have. Cause there's this part of me that's still kind of holding on for like, but maybe I'll finally get to feel like I belong in this family. Yeah.
Was was there a sense of relief for you, Becca, to step into that as your truth? Like finally acknowledging it for yourself?
Um, I think when I was at that healing retreat, it did not feel like relief right away. Um, but more recently, I think I have felt some relief in like, oh, I can stop playing this role, or I can, kind of let go of some things or some ideas that have felt kind of torturous to me. It's like, oh, I don't actually have to hold on to those anymore. I can just let these family relationships be what they are. And it's not that they're all terrible or anything. It's just like, oh, I can just accept that this is as close as we are, with my extended family. And like, that's fine. And there is, I think, a relief in letting go of some of the angst of that. And also then in being able to open myself up to, I can just let these friendships be what they are too. And that's beautiful. So even just something like Thanksgiving, I was talking to my kids today about Thanksgiving, and we don't really have strong traditions for Thanksgiving. So I was like, oh, over the years, we've done this and that, and then whatever. And like, what did you all like? Is there something we would want to do more of? And I mentioned a friend group that we had been invited to, and my kids are both like, yes, we want to go there. That's what we would want to do for Thanksgiving. And there's some relief in going, okay, I could just move ahead and plan Thanksgiving with my friends instead of holding this spot of like, but if the family invites me, then I have to go. Right? Like, oh, if that's what works, if that's what I want to do, fine, I can plan Thanksgiving with my family. But if this is what we would rather be with this friend group, I can just go do that and know that, because the family invitation isn't going to come till the week before anyway. And so I don't have to wait until the week before Thanksgiving to see if my family is going to invite me.
Sitting on pins and needles.
Yeah. I can just plan what, and so yes, there's some relief in that.
That makes me so happy. Well, and I'm thinking, I mean, it obviously fits in with minimalism, but it brought up this idea of not making decisions coming from a foggy place, FOG, fear, obligation, or guilt. Right. And so, yeah, if you're only saying yes to your family because they're your family, so you have to, and that's actually stressing you out, or like you don't know what the plans are, or yeah, like you said, like the anticipation of like, am I going to get invited? I don't know. That doesn't feel like a choice out of like, oh, I just really want to be with everybody and enjoying that time together.
Did either one of you get either implicit or explicit messages growing up, like your family should be that primary, like that place where all the needs are filled, like all the magic happens, all the needs are fulfilled, all of the connections are made?
Oh, absolutely. I did. And I'll tell you, part of that is cultural, growing up in the church. That's very family oriented. And then I think there was another thing that my mom and her siblings, there's 4 of them, they were and still are legitimately each other's best friends. And so all the holidays, all the vacations and everything, that's what they wanted to do. And so we did spend a lot of time kind of all together, or always with some set of cousins or one of my mom's siblings. And so I think that there was some explicit stuff that was taught, and then some other implicit stuff that like, this is just how it is. And then, come into adulthood and realize that it's not the same for me and my kids as it was for my mom, when I was growing up, and feeling some kind of dissonance around that.
Yeah, for me, I would not say it was explicit, but I guess as I'm sitting here reflecting, there was probably some implicit things, just I think in how we spent our time. we ate dinner at my grandparents' house most nights. If we didn't, then they were calling on the phone to see what'd you do this, that day, and what are you doing tomorrow, and what'd you eat, and like pretty much all the things. And I think, yeah, family trips, holidays, we did all of that together. So when my husband and I were first dating, like I thought it was weird because like they didn't really do anything as a family, in terms of like travel or events, different things. They pretty much only saw each other on holidays. So I was confused. And then I mean, now I would say it's kind of a blend, but yeah, I don't know. That's interesting to think about. We definitely didn't have like the family messages of, family's everything idea, but I'll have to think on that more. Implicit for sure.
What about you, Yolanda?
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, there was the explicit, like, family is everything. You can only trust your family, their family's going to be there for you always. Other people will come and go, kind of thing. And then, like, the expectation that for big things, family reunions, graduations, weddings, and stuff, you show up, even though there wasn't like an ongoing relationship with these people. So you show up and you're like, we don't really know each other, but hey, we're family. And it's been interesting, especially recently, having conversations with our adult children around these types of things, like graduations, but weddings. They will at some point possibly have weddings, marriages, what have you. And like, what are the expectations, or like what are the family's expectations about who will be invited? Because my kids are like, I don't even know who that person is. I'm not gonna invite them to whatever, fill in the blank, whatever significant ritual, celebration, what have you.
I wonder if either of you also have stories that you'd like to share about that, realizing that family's closer than friends, the grief that comes with that.
With friends being closer than family.
Oh, did I say it backwards? Yeah, sorry. See the programming, it's there.
It's a Freudian slip.
Yeah, I think that I'm trying to think if there's one point that really stands out, kind of like you shared, Becca. But I think noticing enough of those times of like, oh well, this person has this familial relationship with me, and we should have this type of relationship, and yet we don't ever talk. We don't like, I don't necessarily want to spend time with that person. I think that was the biggest area of like, am I allowed to even feel that way? Am I allowed to even think, oh wow, this is something that if we weren't connected by blood, I would not necessarily choose to be around or spend time with that person. And definitely anytime that I have seen other families that do truly have a connection like that, there has been definitely the feeling of grief, like, what did I do wrong? Why is it not like that? What do I need to do to make it that? Right? Because especially, you know, in the church, there's this expectation of like the prodigal son, and like all of these narratives that we put around these things. Um and I definitely had to reach a point with some family members where I'm like, okay, enough is enough. I've tried, and it's just not ever going to look the way that I'd like for it to, or that it's supposed to. So definitely some grief around that. And I don't know, I think that there's a little bit of like our family, like my experience with military background, being an army brat and an army spouse, where in those conditions, like these people do step in as your family, as a surrogate family. I
Mhm.
think that there's been enough of those situations and experiences where I've been pretty much okay with those people stepping into more primary roles, more roles that I've in the past or previously would have expected a family member to step into. So grief on the, yeah, it's not ever going to look that way. Uh, but some ease with, okay, these are people I'd rather spend time with.
Yeah, I can definitely share a story. So after my grandmother died, I noticed that I started feeling resistant to going to, like, especially holidays or other family events. And I didn't really know why. It took me a while to sit with that and figure out, because actually it started as resistance, then it kind of turned into agitation. Um, and as I sat with that, I realized that it was because I don't really talk to anybody at these family events anymore, because it was just me and my grandma who would really like spend the most time together. And my mom usually would be occupied with like my kids. So like she was playing with them and spending a lot of time with them. And I was just kind of like on the side, I guess, not really engaging with people. And so, I think it was that realization, kind of like what you were sharing, Becca, where I was like, well, how come I'm not good enough to like be talked to? Or how come you don't ask me about, my life or my work or anything? So I don't know that I connected it with friends, but I know I have not felt that same feeling with friends, right? Because I mean, it's a different setting, but I've not had that same experience where I'm like, well, how come they don't, ask me these things? I don't know. It's like there's this missing piece, and when that piece left, it kind of changed how I saw the whole thing.
So what is coming to mind for me is the question that's popping into my mind is this the rule or the norm?
Like, are we the exception or are we the norm? Yeah. I really don't know.
I'm not sure either.
Like, I do know that there are families out there where the siblings are really close. They want to spend time together. And they do the holidays together. And when you go through a hard time, that's who you call and who shows up for you. And like, I know that's not just an illusion, right? But I really don't have a strong sense of what's more typical.
It's not a myth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe it doesn't have to be like a dichotomy, or maybe it doesn't have to be like a strong rule, but more that, I don't know, I can see a through line there that humans will show up for each other. Like, we can count on other humans will be there and know how to do compassion and know how to do support and know how to do tradition and holidays and all that kind of stuff. And for some of us, those people that show up are people that we have blood relationships with. And for others, it will be chosen family, people that we know from other circumstances, and maybe a blend. And I think that's okay. The one isn't less than the other, I think.
Yeah.
But I, at least for myself, was maybe seeing it as less than the more that I clung to this idea that it needed to be family. And I just was always feeling like I was on the outside looking in. It hasn't been a huge life change. Like if I imagine myself like looking in the window, right? It's not even that there's this gigantic life change that happened. It's like I just needed to turn around and realize that like I'm in a room with a bunch of cool people. Like this is fine. This is great and beautiful, but I'm missing out the more that I'm sitting here going, why won't they let me?
I don't know. I feel like people are a little bit more willing to challenge some of these family messages that they've received, and to start thinking about that a little bit differently. But I do worry that then people just move into cutoff or estrangement or disconnection. And so I think it's important as well when we notice that in ourselves or we notice something going on, if it's not harmful or toxic, but really to be able to try to work relationally with people and to share some of these feelings with them and these experiences. And we might be surprised, like that person might meet us there, right? They might say, oh, I didn't know, I didn't understand you were waiting outside the window, but now I see you, so like come in.
I'm also thinking each of us have kids. Becca, you shared the conversation that you had with yours about Thanksgiving, and I kind of mentioned how we're talking through, celebrations and stuff. I don't know, Erika, do you have anything to share there? And I'm wondering if the messaging looks a little different for our kids than it did for us.
Well, I think I still hold family events important. I do like spending time with family, and there are certain things that are stressful. So like Thanksgiving had become stressful in my opinion. And so now we travel for Thanksgiving and we just spend that time with just our nuclear family, just my husband and the kids. And I don't know, we've really been enjoying that. We kind of did it as an experiment, like how would this feel? And, we say, well, we can enjoy things that are less stressful and more spread out over days. Like, for example, Christmas gets spread out over many days, whereas Thanksgiving, we had to be in like 7 places at one time. Became overwhelming. So I think it's important to challenge, tradition. Is that really working for us anymore? If it's not working, then let's do something different. And I think it's cool to show my kids that. What about you, Yolanda?
I'm just, as you were talking about this, I'm thinking of how my husband and our nuclear family upset the apple cart by not having ham for Christmas.
Rebel.
Or whatever that, yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Or maybe it was Easter. I don't remember. But we finally got to the point where we looked at each other. We were like, nobody here actually eats the ham. None of us enjoy it as much. So can we just throw some steaks on the grill and call it a day, do something that we enjoy?
That's us with turkey at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We like the turkey.
Yeah. It's like, where did these rules come from? And it is that blending though of the holding to the parts of the tradition that are important, like understanding why certain traditions are important for you, and then being willing to hold the others loosely to make room. Sometimes it's making room for Friendsgivings and like the people who are here that you're like, oh, let's spend some time over here.
Yeah. And I look at, for me and my kids, as it being, I think the shift I want to make is less about cutting off from family and more about expanding to allow space for friends, to allow space for other meaningful long-term relationships. And so will we still do stuff with family? Yes, absolutely. We have several things. It's like very consistently we do with my mom every year, right? And if there's an extended family thing that happens, I think that maybe we'll pause and say, does this work for us, before just like, yes, we have to go because we were invited. Right. And to not, that's the shift, is expanding for there to be friends, so that I'm not seeing these relationships as being less important.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will do the Friendsgiving, and we usually do a Memorial Day camping trip with the friends, and whatever other things happen, that's like, that can be a beautiful part of my kid's life and stuff that brings me meaning, and know that, hey, I have somewhere to go on the holidays and stuff. And that doesn't, I don't have to look at it like a second choice.
Less than.
Yeah.
How do you navigate through the grief? Does it still come up?
Yeah, it does. And usually for me, the grief goes way back to like childhood parts, younger parts that show up. And that's some kind of combination of just acknowledging that, like, yeah, you hoped for things that aren't going to happen. And maybe even seeing how younger versions of myself were kind of unrealistic about what I expected. Because I think like I mentioned, my mom and her siblings are all really close. And I think that my groups of cousins, like that came from the same, I think that they are close with each other as sibling groups. But I don't know why I thought that, again, this is like maybe kind of younger thinking, right? That's like, somehow I thought that at one point I would get included in that sibling group, but like, I'm not one of their siblings, right? I'm a cousin. So there's some kind of checking, like, oh, maybe younger versions of myself had unrealistic expectations, and that I need to just correct or check those a little bit. And I think more than anything, though, it's just like, yeah, you thought something was going to happen and it didn't, and that hurts, and it's okay to feel sad about that. Yeah.
I think I've worked through a lot of that. I think similar to what Becca's saying, some radical acceptance about this is what it is, and it's sad. Yeah, and that's okay. I do like having sort of systems in place for how I'm going to make decisions about how we spend our time. So from the book Essentialism, there's like a Venn diagram, and that's what I try to use most of the time. So it's like 3 circles that obviously only overlap in like a small area, but it's, are we doing it for the right reasons? Are we doing it? Is it the right thing to do? And is it the right time to do that thing? And so you only say yes to things that fit inside of all 3 of the circles. And so I think that gives me some relief in that, I don't have to make a decision out of a place that, then I'm going to have feelings about it later. I can feel settled in that.
How do you deal with the grief? It's still there, Yolanda.
As I'm sitting here, what keeps coming to mind is the Peloton ride that I did this morning. And the instructor saying, be present to what is. And I think it is that both, and like being present to, yeah, this isn't what parts of you thought this would be or should be or could be. And also look at what is right here.
I wonder if with some of this too, there can be an element of just like wanting what we don't have. Because I'm thinking about a couple that's being seen in my practice right now, where the closeness of the family is something that is creating some friction and issues within the couple relationship. And it's like, I don't know, maybe somebody would look at what we have and be like, wow, that would be nice to not feel this burden of all the family expectation, right? Or here I'm so focused on like, oh, I'm not included in my extended family the way I wanted to be, And other people might look at my life and go, how do you have so many amazing friends? I wish that I had that. All I have is these siblings and I can't get rid of them, right? Or they only like me because we're related or something like that. So I don't know. That's just my reminder to myself, I guess, to like find what's good in your own life and maximize that and kind of stay in your lane without comparison, I guess.
I think that's a good reminder.
Reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Becca, what does your heart know to be true?
That I will always have family around me to support me, chosen or biological.
Erika, what does your heart know to be true?
That I can say no to whatever is not working so that I can say yes to all the things that will work for me.
I love that.
Yolanda, what does your heart know to be true?
That's I belong.